I think Ashok laid out the problem quite eloquently. I think the issue in housing, as he said earlier, is it is a very unique product, in the sense it is both a consumption and an investment product. So the solutions that typically we think of, either thinking of it like an investment or a consumption, would break down under this scenario. And I can tell you that if you look at, I think RBI actually puts out the statistics every year, which is what percentage of people's assets are held in what type of assets. And it has been very, very strong that Indians love real estate and gold. And government is trying their level best to break this. And they're making it very expensive. And believe it or not, the Indians are putting more money into that. So it is a very difficult problem, in the sense, unless we understand why people are doing what they're doing. Solutions that seem to apply elsewhere, it's going to be harder in the Indian context. So having said that, I wanted to kind of touch this housing problem with what we discussed yesterday in terms of the other issues like water, transportation, and so on. I mean, first thing is that this is a holistic problem. I think we are talking about a standard of life or standard of living issue. So people are looking at houses, so there's no point giving them nice houses if there's no infrastructure, or the other way around. If you have infrastructure but there are no places to live and people are living in slums, it's not going to work. Unless we think of these problems as well-connected problems, which need to be tackled as a holistic problem, we are going to come up with solutions which will work for a short time. Maybe it will work in small areas, but it may not be of a scalable variety, which is what we need. Given the size of our population, given what we talked yesterday about urbanization and so on, we need to deal with this problem in a much different way than what we have been thinking about so far. So part of my effort today is to raise some of these issues. I'm putting more like a thought. I don't have, it's not a magic bullet that I'm going to carry with me here. And I'm from IIM Bangalore. There's a very small team from IIM Bangalore who is also present here. We are relatively new in this game. And so I think it is very interesting from somebody who's just put their feet wet into these problems. And the first thing, till yesterday I came in, my first thought was, oh, so many things we could do. The opportunities are immense. And then when we looked around people who have dabbled with these issues for 30, 40 years, then you realize that we are actually facing a humongous problem. So we need to somewhat think about out of convention solutions here. So let me quickly talk about the demand for urban housing, which is, I'm going to skip the fact that, look, we already talked about the need for, or the fact that urbanization is happening in large scale. There's one chart that I wanted to show you which didn't get mentioned yesterday, which is where India stands in a group of cohorts, where your x-axis here is the GDP and the y-axis is the urbanization. I think one way to think about this is, look, urbanization is happening, and it will happen in a much larger scale if you go by what's happened to other countries. The alternative way to look at it is maybe we don't have to follow those examples. We might rethink some of the solutions like what was discussed yesterday, which is, let's not bring people in. Maybe we go out to those people who are living in the villages and maybe create an environment for them there. Maybe that is a solution for this, because there is a much higher cost, as Rohini was mentioning yesterday about water, of overcoming infrastructure challenges on an existing platform as opposed to completely starting from scratch. So that is something that we have to keep in mind when we think about the range of solutions we have. So the demand for housing, whether we are talking about urbanization as people migrating, or as Partha was mentioning, where it is changing the character of the settlement, there is a need for housing, there is a need for infrastructure. All of those things are happening. So, and these are problems that have not been unique to India. So this is a problem that many countries, as Ashok mentioned, Brazil, China, some of the emerging countries as well as the developed countries have dealt with this. But as we also realize that these are local problems as well. So there is a concept of solutions that we can borrow from the other countries, but at the same time we have to realize that there is some sort of our own psyche which needs to be taken into account in order for some of these solutions to work. And this is where I wanted to raise that RBI statistic, which is we love gold and we love real estate. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but at the end of the day, that is what people want to hold for various reasons. And that is, until we understand those, some of those solutions might not happen. So the urgency of the problem is we need to deal with this problem now, so that in 5 or 6 years, as the growth rates that the government is thinking of, maybe 5% at the conservative level, 8 or 9% at the optimistic level, it is going to be a problem in 4 or 5 years now. And this is a statistics that the Hoopa ministry had put together, which is the urban housing shortage. So clearly, we are talking about 18 to 20 million households. I mean, this is very conservative by a lot of experts out there. But it is still there. There is a number out there which says it's 18 to 20 million units. And it's not surprising that most of those units are not with the wealthy people. I mean, these wealthy people can actually afford, despite housing prices being where it is. It's largely coming from smaller or lower income lower income sections of the population. So what has been our response to this? And this is not new, right? So 20 million units is probably this time, I think the last planning commission, they had said much higher numbers. So largely these numbers are not going away. It is a large number that is staying and we are not doing anything about it. The response has been, one, uncoordinated, very haphazard. So you can see a lot of informal settlements happening as people migrate. And we are not able to move those informal settlements to a formal settlement in a meaningful scale. I mean, there are pockets of excellence that you see where people have been able to rehabilitate slums, rehabilitate these informal sectors, but there is nothing of scale that is of necessity here. The land price speculation, as Ashok mentioned, I'm going to show you the same chart from the same source, except that I'm going to benchmark this with the median across the world. And here you're talking about the median of about 8. Which is the median price to income ratio, and the red bars are the Indian cities. So largely these cities are at a higher end. So clearly there is some disconnect between the fact that you have a large section of population which don't have the house to live under, and these houses are not affordable and probably likely to be not affordable in the near future unless we do something about it. The other aspect of the problem is on the financing and how the other aspects of the system work. So we don't have a well-developed financial system. The financing is limited to middle and high-end customers, and more importantly, it is available to the regular income customers. So this is a big problem, as we talked about yesterday on the informal sector. There's a whole lot of people who get decent income, but it's irregular. They can't show you a pay stub. And those people cannot access bank loans, for example. So clearly there is a financing breakdown, that you can't access a large section of population which is surviving very well, and they can actually pay for it, but we can't formally give them money. And actually that translates to a large customer demand. So if you can actually think out of the box here, where we can tap into that source, and there are some people who are doing this. So that's the optimistic solution which is happening on the ground, that there are people dealing with those customers and not doing what the banks would do, or they're not doing what the traditional system will do. So they are trying to meet them, but again it's at a very small scale, and we need to do something more on that. So largely we can characterize the industry as it stands today as underdeveloped, over-regulated. So clearly over-regulated in the sense I'm putting a lot of process procedures under that regulation umbrella. So largely we are tying ourselves quite a bit on in our feet, and clearly we're not moving anywhere. So why can't we make low-priced houses? So I'm going to take away the focus from housing in general to housing for this lower-priced segment, housing in that lower-priced segment. Why can't we do this in a large scale? So there are some market-related issues. the structural issues. So these issues, I would call them as issues which require not just one or two policies. It requires a fundamental thought process change. There's a lot more things need to be done on the ground before these markets can be ready to take on this challenge. There are also legal and policy related things. These are all policies or laws that have either outlived their usefulness, and we need to rethink about those, but those will be the necessary condition in order for this to happen. So the necessary condition is you create the environment, and the sufficient condition would be that you will have players coming in and taking on this challenge at a meaningful scale. So I want to address the land market for a short, because ultimately this is a situation where the first question is show me the land. I mean, just like show me the money, here the question is without land you can't think of housing. So land supply in India is highly inelastic. So why? Because there's a whole chunk of government ownership. There is a lot of privately owned land at a very atomistic size, which means that any project where people want to aggregate land is going to be a problem because there is a cost involved, and the support infrastructure is not there. So clearly some of the solutions that we have seen in the market is where people build houses and then the infrastructure comes later, which may be working in a short while, but we can't scale it up. We need to do the reverse, where we build infrastructure and then the housing comes to follow it up. The title is a big issue in land markets. So clearly the risk involved for people to take on these land or purchase land is problematic, and to add to that, we also have a legal system that's not quick enough. So clearly people take a lot of risk if they have to go buy a land. In fact, recently, or not recently, maybe a few years back, there were some swath of development in Hyderabad where suddenly the Nizam family came in and said that they had claims to those land. So then it's got stuck in the courts. Then there's a price discovery process which is opaque as well. So clearly the transactions that are happening, people are not aware of it. Maybe there is a lot of speculation there, but there's not enough information that's flowing enough for these markets to develop on their own. The other structural impediments on the technology, our technology is still outdated in the sense they work on traditional housing. They have not come to a scale for smaller, low priced segment. Taxation and cartelization is an issue. And then this financing and risk sharing at a reasonable scale. So the policy impediments I'm going to skip, which is things that we are all aware of. The FSI we talked about, again, relative to the other countries, we have not really tapped into that, which we should be thinking about it. And some action is taking place in the marketplace, both at the government side and the market side, but again, small thing. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on some of the thoughts that we have been developing in this segment. One is first framing this issue, like framing what is the problem, and then deciding on some key principles that we should follow before we get to the solutions. We need to have two methods to solve this problem. One is to jumpstart it. So this is something where today, now we need to do something, and then we also have to have some sort of a method or a process for the longer term solution. And then the third one is, at the end, we don't want the government to be involved too much on this. We need the ecosystem to take care of the problem. There is a demand, there is a supply, they should be able to take care of this on their own. At the back, I mean, this is, I'm coming from the financial market side, but this is some more of a hope than probably reality at the end. So the first thing on framing the issue is housing is not a cost. It is an economic investment. So in other words, there are many studies out there which says that people who live in housing, good housing, actually perform well. The productivity goes up, their health is up, there is positive social implications to the society, which we should consider this as more like a requirement than thinking of it as where we need to build houses because people are poor, we need to give them that asset. we have to decide on the role of the government. What should be the government's role? Should it be a facilitator or should it be an active participant? What should it be in the long term, short term? So these are issues that we need to think about. The last one is, the approach is, there is no one size fits all here. There are many people of different needs which are out there, and we need to have different models that should endogenously emerge to deal with it, as opposed to saying this is one size, let's shove it down the throat of all the people who are there. The last one is some of the root causes of our society which needs to be addressed along the way, because ultimately all the good thought in this room and in this conference and in the other places will not come to any fruition unless we are dealing with some of these fundamental root causes. I wanted to touch base on one thing on the political establishment. Yesterday, Professor Sivaramakrishnan was talking about it. This is a slide that I just slipped in this morning. I was just thinking about it because ultimately this is the main issue. I mean, how we have the thought, like you were saying, some of these policies or task forces were done in 1960s, and we're doing the same thing today. So nothing new is, we already know what needs to be done, but how to do this. So maybe we should focus on that. And some of the thoughts here is maybe deal with those people in the swing constituencies where the political establishment is much more open to taking new ideas. Then around those, organize collective action, where again collective action is not let's all give houses, as opposed to specific projects, so which is much easier for people to tie their hands around. And then of course getting it to a scale. These are all thoughts. So the unlocking, this is one thing that that seems to me like a big issue, that government owns a lot of land in urban areas, whether through the Ministry of Defense, railways, and of course there, I mean, I'm going to show you a chart here which says if you take all the surplus land, which is very conservative estimate that I have, I can show you the numbers later, and take those and put it through the affordable housing segment, you would have taken or solved the problem today as it stands today. And this is, government has got this land through a historical accident. I mean, people have cantonments in, I don't know why army should be in Bangalore. I mean, they could very well be in a village down there, because there's no need for some of these larger entities to take so much of land in the urban areas for no possible benefit. I mean, there's a benefit, I can see it, but I can't see it, so maybe some people here could tell me what those benefits are. But this is something that is going to be contested. This is an issue which is going to be controversial, but this is where we need to think about how do you force this, because ultimately if we can't do this, we can't solve some of the land problems. Some of the other things on the land readjustment schemes, which again, we don't have land, people have land, but they don't want to give it to the government to develop. So how do we get them to trust us with the land, trust the government with the land? How can we take those land, take a piece of it, build infrastructure on top of it, and give the land back to them at a much higher value for them? There are places like Gujarat, Rajasthan, where it's happening well. Maybe some of those thoughts we could absorb for the nationwide approach. And of course, some of the other things out of the box, which is, there's a whole lot of land sitting with banks where the borrowers have defaulted. And banks typically auction it at a discount. And these are some of the land that are in the urban areas. So we should be able to take some of this land and also solve the NPA problems, the non-performing loan problems for the banks. The private system here is, there is a lot of action taking place on the private development side. There are people who are focusing on affordable housing segment alone, and there are people who are screaming about this, the amount of time it takes for simple processes to go through their life cycle. It's about 2 to 2.5 years of waiting time, and given the speculation you're talking about, nobody can price this. I mean, even Goldman Sachs cannot price this if you have this kind of uncertainty. So clearly this is an issue where we need to think about how do we let the private sector do what they're doing very well already. I mean, there are already people there who are interested in doing this. They are getting some reasonable rate of return. Let them at least, let's stay out of the way and let them do their job. And while we think about the bigger problem. So that's something that we should think about. The demand side is things like cooperative housing. So where Brazil has actually done a very good job in trying to have this chit fund kind of thing where people pool their money together and one person out of lottery gets to win it, and therefore they pay the mortgage, they get the mortgage. So this is somewhere where there is a financing problem for these informal sector that we can solve through some of these alternatives that have been working well in other places. Intermediaries. So I'm going to rush, this is my last slide. While we are building the ecosystem and having the government deal with the bigger problem and let the private enterprise take care of the issues meanwhile, we should also take a very active role in improving the property rights in this country. Because ultimately, if property rights are weak, there's going to be a contest, and it's going to be very difficult to get any scale. I mean, I came from the US where there's the opposite side of the spectrum where I can look at my neighbor's house. I know exactly how much he paid, when he paid it, what taxes he's paying, and I can see his layout of the inside of the house. I mean, that is one end of the spectrum, but then we could come to some sort of where we are using some of the technology we have developed, digitize them, put it out in the public domain, let people look at this, and maybe this is a starting point. Similarly, transaction records, we can digitize them. I think a lot of sub-registrar offices are already doing it. Put it in the public domain and make it easier. So that way people are not having to go to a sub-registrar's office to get that information. And as anybody who has gone to those offices, you'll know that it is a vested interest. So people will not give you that information quite easily. So this is where we have built a RTI kind of system where we are literally going around and touching our nose. I mean, for some information that we should be getting out of based on our rights as citizens. We are developing all these humongous national programs, all through silos. Like we have Aadhars, we have PAN cards, we have all kinds of individual identity programs. Let's link them. I mean, there's got to be some way to use this, right? At the end of the day, there's no point having a biometric card when nobody's using them. So bring them to the land ownership. Maybe that's one way to make the land ownership more transparent. And all of these, let the government take initiative to put this. So this governments can do, while the construction technology or how do you rationalize, how do you build the best house at a small amount of cost, let the public-private sector deal with that problem. And so maybe somewhere along the line there should be a public-private partnership, but I think the need is there. So we need to do something about it. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.